Welcome to the Celtic Myth Pod Show, bringing the tales and stories of the ancient Celts to your fireside. Episode SP40, Druid Special number 2.
Hello and welcome to the Celtic Myth Pod Show. I'm Ruth.
And I'm Gary. Before we start, we'd like to say a massive, enormous thank you for downloading the second half of the first of our interviews with modern druids.
Goodness, he's such a drama queen, isn't he? And we hope you enjoy the show. As well as the second half of our interview with Philip Shallcrass, the head of the British Druid Order, you can hear 6 pieces of music, including a lovely song by Philip that he wrote for his children. Listen out for that a bit later in the show.
But before we start, let's let everyone know how they can get hold of us.
Good idea. Well, you can chat to us on Facebook, or you can find us on Twitter. You can send us some feedback by emailing us at garyandruth@celticmythpodshow.com. And you can also leave some voice feedback by using the grey widget on the right-hand side of our website pages, because we love hearing your feedback.
Definitely. And you can find all of these details in the show notes at shownotes.celticmythpodshow.com. Now then, have we got any news and views?
We've got some news about 3 of our show friends, haven't we?
Oh yes, some super things coming out to tell you about. Let's start with our friends, the Dolmen.
Oh yes, they've just released a super new album called The Banquet.
Yes, they have. And it shows that as a band, their music is always evolving. There are some lovely tracks on this album. We'll have their Banquet video in the show notes to give you a taster, and there's 2 tracks in there. Keep your ears peeled. We're playing some tracks from the album in future shows.
Yeah, it's a great album.
It is.
And now some news of things to come. Our friend Dave the Bard is releasing his second songbook to date, called The Four-Cornered Castle.
That's right. And it gives you all the tunings and chords that he uses for his latest 3 albums. And they're The Cauldron Born, Tales from the Crone Man, and Antlered Crown and Standing Stone. So you're going to have to put up with me and strumming my awful guitar, I'm afraid.
Excellent. That's just what I need. The guitar, the drum, headphones. That's what I need, headphones. Right, anyway, this songbook would be a perfect gift for all you budding guitarists out there. Now then, what was the next piece of news we've got? I've forgotten.
Now that concerns our sonic sorcerer, Phil Thornton. Do you remember, now cast your mind back, one of his earliest and best-loved New Age albums called Edge of Dreams?
I might do. Is that a floaty New Agey thing or a weird 80s album? I get very confused by this music.
That was one of his beautiful, incredibly atmospheric albums.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, he's told us that deep inside what he calls the bubble, that's his recording studio, he's recording a follow-on to Edge of Dreams.
Good luck, Phil. We can't wait to hear your album. Why don't we have a name for our studio? Why does he get to call his the bubble and ours gets called the studio?
I think ours should be called the inverse TARDIS because there's more space on the outside than there is on the inside.
There's always that. That's very true.
The box, the biscuit tin,
absolutely. The rabbit hutch.
Yeah, that'll do. Anyway, great stuff. Now I'm really looking forward to this show. So, shall we crack on with our first piece of music?
Let's do it. Have a listen to a track from an amazing band called Pandora Celtica. They're a dark Celtic vocal band who have an incredible high energy and very powerful tribal sound.
Ooh.
So get your feathers out.
Okay.
This track is called 500 Tub Thumps from their 5th album, Fairy Revel, a fantastic medley. Have a listen.
We'll be singing when we're winning. We'll be singing. I get knocked down, but I get up again. I'm gonna keep it down. I get knocked down, but I get but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down.
Hissing the night away. Hissing the night away.
When I wake up,
He drinks a vodka drink.
well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you.
Songs that remind him of the better times.
And when I go out, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down.
Hissing the night away. Hissing the night away.
When I'm lonely,
He drinks a vodka drink.
well, I know I'm gonna be the man who's lonely without
Songs
you.
that remind him of the better times.
When I'm dreaming, well, I know I'm gonna dream about the time when I'm with you. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down to fall down at your door.
That was the wonderful sound of Pandora Celtica with their track 500 Tub Thumps. You can find out more about this fantastic band in the show notes.
Oh, wow. They were incredible. It's the first time I've heard them. I'll definitely be tracking them down.
Good, aren't they?
Yeah.
So let's move on to the first part of our second interview with Philip Shallcrass, also known as Greywolf, the head of the British Druid Order.
Yes. Philip starts off by talking about the distance learning courses that the BDO run and lots of other interesting things. So let's let it roll.
How would you say that the BDO differs from other Druid orders? Is it just the shamanic aspect, or are there other differences?
This is one of our frequently asked questions.
Oh, I see.
Oh, sorry about being predictable.
It's also quite an obvious one, so, you know.
People are going to want to know.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, there are similarities and differences. I mean, I've spent the last 7 years putting together courses for the BDO for the first time, distance learning courses. In order to do that, I had to really go back to basics for my own, you know, personal integrity. I had to kind of strip down everything that I believed, go back to where I found it in the first place, look at it, see whether it made sense. I also, of course, had to explore a whole load of other avenues. Like, you know, I'm a fanatical book collector. If I find a second-hand book, it's cheap and it looks as though it might be interesting, I buy it, I take it home.
Oh, man, we're part of the same club.
There are others out there, apparently.
Yeah. Yes,
So yeah, I mean, the upshot of this being, of course, that I've got like hundreds of books sitting on my shelves that I've kind of started, got through the first chapter or so, but never actually fully read. You know? So going through this, I was digging out these and thinking, oh yeah, there might be something about that in there, and you know, so pulling out all these books like, on Greek philosophy and all these sort of odd subjects that I'd kind of touched upon but never fully got into. So sort of just exploring and building, and we've come across some we have this concept in the British Druid Order. In the British tradition, there's this thing Arwen, which is often translated as inspiration. I translated it from an 1880s Welsh dictionary as the flowing spirit.
That's nice.
Now, more recent Welsh dictionaries that I've consulted, you can't make that translation. It doesn't work. The only one that I found was this first Welsh dictionary that I picked up. It was published about 1880 that I got in a second-hand bookshop. But this idea of Arwen as the flowing spirit, because it's the liquid that Cerridwen brews in the cauldron, right? So it's a liquid. Right?
Yeah.
After the 3 drops of inspiration have gone to little Gwion and turn him into Taliesin and give him the gift of inspiration, the cauldron splits open and 4 streams flow out from it, So the idea of Arwen being the flowing spirit, it just works.
It does work.
Yeah.
And one of the contrasts I have with this is that in the Irish tradition, inspiration is referred to as the fire in the head.
That's right, yeah.
And I don't know, it just seems this thing that the
You also
Welsh
get
had this
the
idea
salmon in the
flowing
well of
liquid.
Conla and the streams that come out from that.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the salmon being and the nuts of wisdom that feed the salmon and so on.
Yeah. But yes, the idea of sort of Arwen, the flowing spirit. And one of the things that we do in the British Druid Order, that they also do in Obod and that other groups do as well, is we invoke Arwen. Because there's this idea that's quite common in our culture that inspiration strikes out of the blue and there's nothing you can do about it. Either it comes or it doesn't. See, that's just not good enough for us. We want to be working more often than that allows for, apart from anything else. So, we endeavour to summon inspiration. And one of the ways that we do this is by chanting Arwen. So you chant Arwen, like in Hinduism they chant Om.
Yes.
But we chant Arwen, and with the idea of drawing in inspiration from the world around us. And putting these courses together, you hit points where... I mean, there were times when I couldn't get something. I'd sit down, I'd do the Arwen chant. And then you'd sit back down, put random play on the computer, and a song would come on random play that gave you the key that you needed, the clue, the first clue. Right? And then you type out a little bit, the first couple of ideas that come from that song. And then you think, wait a minute, didn't that refer to a book I was looking at the other day? So you go over to the shelf and you pull out the book and blonk and randomly open it at the A page, and there's the next bit of information you need. And then another book will fall off the shelf you've just been to, and you'll go over to that and it'll be lying on the floor, and you'll look at it and think, oh yeah, that's the next bit of the puzzle. And there were sometimes, like for a couple of weeks, you'd be on that flow and kind of riding that flow, and that was just beautiful. And some of the things that came out of that, I think, were quite remarkable and are unique to us. One is there's an early Irish text called The 12 Doorways of the Soul, which has been around for a while and it's been quoted here and there, but I'd never found anyone who'd really, really looked deeply into what it actually meant. And I think we've discovered in it a whole system of healing.
Really?
And we did the first trial run with it at a spiritual centre up in Shropshire, Wildways. And one of the women who came there has worked for the National Health Service for about 20 years. And she's a senior nurse. And she's worked with mostly with terminal patients. And she was one of our first test group with this thing. And she was just so excited by it.
Really?
Yeah, she was sort of
Excellent.
jumping up and down, literally jumping up and down with excitement after having had this done to her and after having subsequently done it to me. And she said, her comment was, "This could be bigger than Reiki." So, I mean, that's one thing that is unique
that's
to
quite
us that we
exciting.
found.
Yeah.
And there's a slightly different way from other people to working with another thing from one of the old Irish texts, the 3 cauldrons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the 3 cauldrons are these sort of bodily centres that kind of relate to the Hindu chakras, but don't kind of relate to the Tantien in Taoist yoga. Probably better than they do to the Hindu chakras, but they're sort of energy centres within the body, and they relate to the whole thing about inspiration as well, because they're cauldrons and you brew them.
So this is, you kind of have one at your head, one at your stomach, and one at your pelvis, or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one and sort of groin and belly, one at the solar plexus, and one in the head. Yeah, and everyone's born with the lower one upright. Most people are born with the one at the solar plexus on their side, and the one at the top is usually sort of wrong way up. And the course of training that Druidic and Bardic folk went through in the Irish Bardic schools in the medieval period, part of what they were doing was trying to get that top cauldron to flip over.
Yeah.
And that's the point at which it's able to receive inspiration coming from, skies above and from the gods, and you get divinely inspired at that point. And that's, the one we're working towards.
Absolutely, yes.
And that comes in, obviously, the third one of our courses.
We'll talk more about that later, I hope. Yes.
Because, we guarantee enlightenment. Edit that out.
Yes, can I quote you on that?
We may keep you to that.
No, we're... yeah.
So, talking about different Druid orders and things like that, would it be fair to say that you have the same grades that they do, or the same differences, the bards, the ovates and the druids? Do you have those?
Well, yes, we do the whole bard, ovate and druid thing, but I've never thought of them as grades. I was always really uncomfortable with that because it sounded like a hierarchy.
It does, doesn't it? A progression. Yeah, it does sound like that.
I mean, the thing is, I'm a musician and an artist. So, downgrading bards so they're at the bottom of a ladder was never going to work for me. So, I mean, the way we... it's difficult because when you put together distance learning courses, people have to start them somewhere.
Yes.
And you need to give a certain amount of background information. And in the case of Druidry, the background information, a lot of it is in the form of the old stories and poems.
Which is naturally bardic realm.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the obvious place to put them, is in the bardic course. So in the bardic course, we give the poems, the literature, the stories, and we also give the basics of how to do ritual, and we build up and we give meditation techniques and various other stuff. But then, because it's a structured course, you then have to go on to the ovate course if you want to do the ovate stuff, which is to do with seership and healing. And then the druid course is to do with teaching, and in my book it's also to do with the whole shape-shifting, weather-working, magical, if you want to call it shamanic side of things. So you kind of end up having to do it as a progression, but at the same time, through that progression, I make it clear all the time that if you want to do healing, say, as an ovate, then that's absolutely fine, and that's what you should do. But if you don't want to go further than being a bard, you don't have to, because there is enough in the bardic course that if you follow it closely, carefully, and regularly, you can get to where it is you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, if you want to do the other stuff, then you carry on. But it doesn't mean that, if you go on to be an ovate, you're better than a bard, because I'm a musician. There is no one better than a good bard.
So,
Well, maybe a great bard.
Oh, well said.
Okay,
only his son can say that. Anyway,
I'll give you that one.
So that being said, a lot of people obviously don't know how Druid orders work, and to say that there is, would it be fair to say that there really isn't a hierarchy as such in Druid orders? For instance, OBOD, the BDO, the OBOD says everyone is equal, and they have a chosen chief.
Yeah.
Is that? Would
They
you?
also have a Pendragon.
But they also have,
Modron,
but they also have others. That's right. So, is it high? Is there?
Do you have a hierarchy like that?
I occasionally call myself the unchosen chief.
I see. Are we being funny here?
No, well, it's sort of, how do you get to be a druid chief? Well, you start a druid order.
That's right.
I think that's a good qualification.
Absolutely.
This is what I advise people, and several of them have taken that advice and gone away and done just that.
I was
But
thinking
no,
about
I think I've always tried. I've been uncomfortable with the idea of hierarchies. I've never really, when I was at primary school, even back then, about halfway through primary school, I was starting to work out that teachers were, they were only people. Mm-hmm. In what way did they have the right to tell us to follow rules that made no sense? So I've always had a tendency to question authorities. Hence, I never wanted to be one.
Yes. Rather ironic then.
Well, yeah, but from my point of view, I've spent. This is now my 40th year of being a druid. This is my 40th anniversary year. 20 years since I had that experience in the Sweat Lodge and became Greywolf. So I've accumulated. Well, it's more than 40 years worth of experience. It's 40 years as a druid, but I was into weird stuff before then as well. And going through this path. Sometimes it feels like it's on a cliff edge.
Yeah.
And you're between the worlds, and if you fall off on one side, you end up, in an institution in a padded room. And if you fall off on the other side, you become a kind of, sort of reasonably functional human being, and possibly quite a well-functioning human being. But it's walking that sort of, jagged edge, right? And. So no, I don't want to set myself up as sort of telling people what to do, but at the same time I have this accumulated experience of decades, and I can't help but think of my 16-year-old self and how much I would have gained from having the knowledge that I have now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
So when I started putting these courses together, it was with my 16-year-old self in mind, because I'm sure that there are other 16-year-old me's out there who've had weird experiences since they were kids, don't know what to do about them, and if you can put out things that are going to keep them from falling off that cliff edge,
Yeah.
There's so much dodgy guidance out there that something that's solid is obviously well worth it.
Well, that's my motivation.
For our international audience, what's the equivalent of primary school? Is that grade school? What do they call it?
Junior school.
You don't know, do you?
No, actually.
What comes after kindergarten?
Kindergarten.
Okay, so what age does our primary school cover? Just so they can go from there.
It's in my case, it was 4 to 11.
That's right.
Yeah, most of them start around 5. And
Yeah, okay, so 5 to 11
So
years old.
it may be an infant or a junior.
That's the age that
or-
Philip's talking about.
Yeah.
The courses that you run, you say you start with the Bardic course, which is a superb place to start. You've explained perfectly why. What kind of requirements do you have for somebody if they were going to come to you and say, well, can I do the Bardic course, please, Philip? What would you expect from them?
Well, one thing that we hope and expect is that people will be pretty self-motivated. We do offer tutorial guidance if people need it. I've been surprised at how few people have, actually, which I think speaks pretty well of how well we put the courses together. At least I hope it does.
They're not all just got them on their shelves and ignoring them then.
Well, no, we've had a lot of positive feedback on the courses. One of the first people to take our Bardic course was a woman who'd been into Druidry and Wicca for 22 years. And she said that she'd come into the course thinking, well, I'm not going to learn much in here. And she was just overwhelmed at the amount of inspiration that she was drawing from it.
Oh, that's incredible.
And apart from anything else, she went out and bought herself a harp and learnt to play it,
Wow.
Awesome. That's awesome.
which she found absolutely brilliant. And I have to admit, so did I.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, we all of us who run Druid groups, especially the ones who are running distance learning courses, we're all drawing on the same pot of inspiration, basically. But we're all different people, so we all translate it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And the different ways that we create it, recreate it, however you want to look at it, are going to appeal to different people.
That's a fair comment.
Yeah.
So,
Some words for
Obod
one.
is brilliant, and it fulfills the spiritual needs of a whole bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it does that largely because Philip Cargon is a really lovely guy. He put it together really carefully. He had stuff left over from Ross Nichols to work on in the first place, but his guidance, kind of in the background and kind of gently, has been wonderful. And he's put together something brilliant, and as I say, it works for a lot of people. Also at the same time, as with ours, there are some people it doesn't work for. And we found that some of the people who haven't got on with the Obod course get on with ours. And likewise, I'm absolutely sure that a lot of people are not going to get on with ours, but are going to get on really well with Obods.
And it's good to have a choice.
It is
Well,
good to
yeah,
have a
yeah.
choice, yeah.
In fact, recently we had our first bard that I've heard from, at least, who simultaneously signed up for both courses, Obods and ours. And she said that she found they complemented each other beautifully, which I was delighted with.
That's
Because
brilliant.
that's really what I was hoping for.
That
Because
tells
there's
you
no
you're on the
point
right
in
lines,
reproducing exactly what Obod
Well, no.
are doing, because they're already doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if we can complement each other, then that's great.
Which
Everybody
is
wins.
better than a competitive,
Sure, yeah.
angle
yeah.
to work together. Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, Philip and I have been mates for years, so the thought of competing with him never entered my head.
Well, we're hoping to get a chat with Philip soon on the show as well. So
You should. Lovely
Yes.
fella.
Yes,
Yes, he is indeed.
We've met him a
He
couple
is
of times. You just have to tie him down for an interview.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, shall we have a little break there and maybe some more music?
Good idea. What did you have in mind?
Well, there's a superb track by the amazing guitarist Jonathan Kershaw that's absolutely perfect for springtime called The Green Man. See what you think of this driving musical masterpiece.
That was a beautiful and powerful track.
Wasn't
Like
it
that.
super? Yeah. That was John, or Jonathan Kershaw, with his track The Green Man from his fantastic album Bizarre Tales.
Find out more about Jonathan and his music in the show notes. Now let's get back to the interview with Philip as he tells us about something amazing called the World Drum. Last year, you had something called the World Drum, which came to England. Now, this was kind of all over Facebook and social media. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because
It looked awfully important. Yeah,
and there
what's
was
that about?
We were asked several times, and I said, when we talk to Philip, we'll ask him. So tell us about this World Drum, how it started, what it is.
Yeah, the World Drum is fantastic. There's a guy called White Cougar, and he's a Norwegian young guy who does shamanic stuff. Like a lot of us who do shamanic stuff, he doesn't call himself a shaman.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us don't. But he had a vision in which Mother Earth asked him to create the World Drum for her. And the World Drum would carry this message around the world that we need to alter our relationship with Mother Earth in order to preserve all of her creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do this, we need to sort out our ecology, and we need to sort out our attitude towards warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went to the Sami, the native people of northern Scandinavia.
Yep.
And he went to a Sami friend of his, an old guy called Birger Mikkelsen,
Mm-hmm.
who's a Sami drum maker. And he actually made the drum. It's got reindeer skin stretched across it. It's got a design on it, a circle in the centre, and 4 arms radiating out from it from 4 directions. And the first ceremony that was held with the World Drum was held at the Norwegian Parliament. And Norwegian MPs came out and joined in with the ceremony.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
And it's been travelling around the world ever since. This was, I think it was 8 years ago, that first ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And it's now been to pretty much every continent except the Arctic and the Antarctic.
Mm-hmm.
It's been to innumerable countries around the world, and it's been played in ceremony by people of just scores of different traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And it travels around the world kind of freely. It gets sent from one place to the other. Whichever group has it then pays for it to be sent on
that's
by
beautiful.
mail to the
That's
next
a great
group.
idea.
That's beautiful. So have you guys actually had to got to play it?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, you too, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah? What does it sound like? As a drummer, I need to know. What does it sound like?
Oh, it's a beauty.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
a beauty. It's just. It's now all these years travelling around the world, being played by Native Americans. It's been to Tuva in Central Asia. In Tuva in Central Asia, there are factions within Tuva that will have nothing to do with each other because they have these like age-old enmities. They came together for the first time around the World Drum.
That's real power.
I
Isn't it?
know there are
amazing.
films of it online that you can
Yeah.
find. The ceremony with like the sort of high politicians in the.
We'll
the
see if we can
different
find
regions
that and link
coming
to it in the show
Amazing.
notes, because that's amazing.
It's been Native American tribes right the length and breadth of the Americas have played it. Aboriginal folk in Australia, New Age groups all over the place. I think we were the first pagan group in the UK to host it.
Mm-hmm.
And we took it to an Ogham Druid camp the first time we had it, which was a few years before. But last year it arrived early, which I'm real surprised. Wasn't expecting it. There's a ring on the doorbell. I go to the door and open the door. And because we'd had the World Drum a couple of years earlier, I recognised its box. There's this postman standing there with his clipboard and this box in his hand, and I thought, hey, that's not supposed to be here for another 2 weeks. What? So yeah, sort of brought it in and kind of left it for a little while because it had come from Hawaii.
Oh my goodness!
And it arrived in early April. Really, really cold last April.
Oh, so from very, very hot to very, very cold.
Yeah, and I thought, well, okay, I've got to gently acclimatise it then. So I didn't open the box the first night. I just sort of stood it in front of my altar and left it in the box. And then I sort of undid the strap the next day and sort of had a look at it and checked it was okay. And then, got it out and had a little play. See if it was working.
Because you just have to.
And then... So 2 weeks before our first ceremony was due, there was the world drum. It was supposed to arrive like a couple of days before the first ceremony. Yeah. So it's sitting there in front of my altar, and I put my drum next to it, and it's sitting there as a reminder. You've got ceremonies to do. They're important. Get it right, please.
But no pressure.
So you weren't finding that nerve-wracking at all, then?
Oh, ever so slightly.
A smidge.
But it gives you so much to live up to. I mean, this has now been played by tens of thousands of people of all different spiritualities all around the world.
Bringing their
the
focus
energy
onto
that
one
this
thing
has absorbed through the years it's been travelling around. It's phenomenal. It is, we talk about power objects. This is an object with real power.
Yeah.
You can feel it. It radiates from it. And it does bring people together. I mean, the ceremonies that we did this time around, apart from anything else, the weather had been pretty terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really perishingly cold apart from anything else. So, we go and do a ceremony, and the first one we did was Avebury, and really good turnout of people. And during the ceremony, the sun came out for the first time in about 2 weeks.
Excellent.
We think, hey, this is good. So then we took it down to Stonehenge, and a few of us played it in Stonehenge. Which was quite an experience in itself.
I would imagine that sonically that was something to experience.
Even
at the energy levels would have been incredible.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of work done on the acoustics of Stonehenge.
That's right.
In recent years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been watching this quite carefully, actually.
And if you can find the sweet spot and get the rhythm right, the stone's going to pick it up and amplify it. Yeah. And then the next one was on Glastonbury Tor.
Wow.
And the one on Glastonbury Tor was a beautiful day. Just brilliant blue sky in all directions and the sun blazing down on us. And it was just fantastic. And I don't know, about 150 people up there maybe. Big circle. And just the energy was just incredible. The smiles on people's faces,
Wow.
You sort of do these rituals and you look round and you see everybody in the circle with a big beaming smile on their faces, and you just know that this is right. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And a lot of it is down to this thing, the world drum, because it has this impetus, it has all this sort of power behind it, all this good spirit energy that people have drummed into it all around the world for the last 8 years. And every time we do this, we read out this prayer for Mother Earth, which travels around with it. And it's a request that everyone just, picks up on this idea that we cannot continue to abuse our Mother Earth. We cannot continue to overuse the resources that we've been given on this planet that we live on.
Well said.
And we cannot continue to kill each other in stupid, pointless, bloody wars.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, this message is being repeated again and again and again all around the world when this happens. And sometimes you get politicians involved in it. Sometimes you just get, small spiritual groups involved in it. But the message is the same all the time. And it's a message that kind of seeps into your being when you're with this thing.
And it sounds like it's growing and spreading as well.
And you get everybody in the circle to play the drum. Right? You take the drum around the circle and somebody sort of going around holds the drum. And you pass beaters round from hand to hand, and everybody in the circle gets to play the world drum. And, their magic, their spirit energy goes into it as well. And just, positivity and joy go into it.
Awesome.
And the thing kind of grows and snowballs and just keeps going.
Did you take it to Wales? I vaguely remember you. Did you go down to Wales?
We did, yeah. We took it to a retreat centre called Caimabon.
Oh, did they have a roundhouse there?
They do, yeah.
I love
yeah.
roundhouses, yeah.
Big fan of roundhouses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But yes, we spent the night in their roundhouse.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
The night we spent in their roundhouse, the side of the mountain was hit by gale force winds.
Oh, no.
That were just roaring through like an express train. And the way they've built their roundhouse, they've left a gap between the roof and the top of the wall. So the wind was
Can go
like
straight
whistling through. And they have this really, really heavy cloth blanket that hangs over the doorway of the roundhouse. And it was standing out parallel to the ground with the wind.
Yeah.
It was ferocious.
So you didn't get much sleep that night then?
None at all. No.
I was alright. I mean, maybe I found a good spot, but maybe I was just that tired. I don't know.
But yeah, we also went to one of the old chambered tombs on Anglesey, because Anglesey was supposed to be a centre of druidic power back in the sort of pre-Roman days.
They were our last druids, centre of our last druids.
This
So
was,
they
this was
say,
the
yeah.
theory. I've never
So
bought
really
into
had
that personally. I
No.
could never see any way that every druid in Britain was going to gather together all in one place, specifically to be slaughtered by the Romans.
Absolutely.
It never made any sense
I
whatsoever.
think there are a lot of contending theories against that now. There's-
It
Not
may-
only that, but some of the southern tribes were friendly to the Romans.
Yes.
yes.
And the Romans are not going to kill the priests, storytellers, herbalists, healers of tribes that are friendly to them.
No, that's
You're just
true.
not
Or they're
going to do
hiring
that
as
because
mercenaries.
they're not going to be very friendly if you do.
No.
It's very true.
No.
So,
Yeah, they had client states, didn't they, and things like that at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, they bought them off with cheap wine.
Absolutely.
Actually, I gather some of it was quite expensive.
Foreign silk clothes.
You couldn't do that as a druid now.
Oh, yeah, you could.
You could try.
I say, pass that bottle, Gary.
Right now, old chap, coming over. So, back to the courses.
Yeah.
Do you include any sort of work with drums in the courses? Because we talked about shamanic druidry and the world drum and the bardic grade being bards, musicians and stuff. Do you link those at all in?
Yeah, we introduced bits all the way through, really. Because obviously, part of the bardic thing is being a musician, right? So in the early booklets of the bardic course, I was thinking, well, because a lot of people consider themselves not to be musicians,
Sure.
I mean, everybody can play an instrument.
We're
Believe
born with
me.
one.
Listen, everybody can play an instrument. Did you get that? I'm telling you, everybody can play an instrument. Right, we've got that
Greywolf has
clear.
spoken.
But I was thinking,
Can I
okay,
quote you on that?
Feel free. So yeah, in the early booklets, I was thinking, what are the easiest instruments to play? Obviously, one of the easiest to play is a drum. So I said to people, if you think you can't play a musical instrument, get yourself a drum. If necessary, get yourself a metronome, so you can see the time beating, and just beat along with that. So yeah, we introduced drumming really early on, and there's also sort of reference to the fact that you can use drums for sort of meditation. You sort of play them gently, kind of a heartbeat rhythm, and you can sort of trance out to them, and it's just a beautiful thing to do. And then following on from that, try a Native American style flute. The reason I say Native American style flute is not because I'm a wannabe Indian, but because they're easier than Western style flutes to play.
They are, yeah.
Because all of the notes are at the same key, in tune with each other. So it's really difficult to play a bum note, basically.
Does the same apply to penny whistles and things like that, or are they different?
Sadly, no.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No, it's the pentatonic tuning is what you need.
Right.
If you've got the pentatonic tuning, you can't go wrong.
Everything sounds good.
And
Okay.
also, of course, the harp. If you have all the strings of a harp, they're sort of tuned to a scale. So again, it's really difficult to play a bum note. If you're actually trying to play a tune, you can easily hit a wrong note and go wrong. But if you just kind of pluck harps pretty much at random, you can make just a lovely kind of tinkling, beautiful,
Awesome.
relaxing.
I think even I could manage that.
watery style sound. Well, Robin Williamson, formerly of the Incredible String Band, my favourite bard of all time.
We
right?
avoided all the questions about him. We're
Never come up.
not going to mention him at all.
Not
finds
mention
a
the
way.
primary chief bard of Britain.
Here we go.
But the reason he first started playing a harp was because he wanted to do exactly that. He wanted just to make nice twiddly noises to go in the background when he was telling stories.
He made a career out of it.
And he's now learnt to play the thing brilliantly.
Yes.
Much, much better than I can. But no, the harp, again, is a really sort of forgiving instrument. And also the harp can be a shamanic instrument. Because one of the other things that we've picked up from the old Irish literature is that there's this idea that you play the sleeping tune, the weeping tune, and the laughing tune.
That's right, yeah.
And so you can shift people's consciousness by the music that you make on the harp.
And this was played in the halls of Tara, these tunes, weren't they, by the...
This is the idea, yeah. And the good god, the Dagda, had one himself. Yes. His harp of four corners, yeah. But, so, you can do the sort of consciousness shifting, which, if you want to call it that, is shamanic, using a harp. I've also discovered, because I play guitar, you can do it with a guitar as well. If you, find a sort of chord that sort of works for you, and if you kind of hit it rhythmically for long enough, you can trance out on that just as well as you can on a drum or any other instrument.
But if you don't have that musical ability, a drum will do it for you. And get you to the place, because we hear quite a lot about drums being used for, as you say, shamanic for a better word, for trance, etc., etc.
But as the Ramones have shown to us, you don't need huge mastery of the guitar in order to make wonderful music.
There are Ramones fans out there that will be killing us now.
I love the Ramones. I went to their last ever UK gig the day before.
Actually, you always bloody have. You always have.
That goes to the show.
And if you haven't checked them out yet, look for the kind of UK equivalent of the Ramones, the Screaming Blue Messiahs.
We'll put a link to them in the show notes.
They are awesome.
Okay.
They also do a track called Let's Go Down to the Woods and Pray, and you can't argue with that.
You can't argue with that. Absolutely.
No.
Let's have another break, and especially as Philip was talking about Celtic mythology, shamanism, and harps.
Why is that?
Well, this next piece of music is a lament played on the harp by the wonderful bards of Fola. You remember we told the tale of Diancecht in episode 3 and how Miach, the son of Diancecht, was killed?
Wasn't that something to do with jealousy?
Yeah, oh yes, that's right.
I think it was.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, have a listen to this beautiful lament of Miach by the bards of Fola.
That was the gorgeous track, The Lament of Mia, played by Eva Gordon of the Bards of Fola from their album Sacred Oaks.
These guys are part of a Druid group in California, New York and Arizona. You'll be hearing more from them in future shows.
Blimey, they must travel a lot.
Yeah. And I just think the Druid group is big.
Right. That's not how it sounded.
No, I agree.
Anyway, more details in the show notes?
More details in the show notes.
While we were talking to Philip, he had a deck of cards by him, so we asked him about them. Have a listen.
So it looks like you've got a set of cards there, Philip. What's all that about?
Yeah, that's our Ogham cards. The Ogham alphabet has 25 letters. They're carved on memorial stones all over Ireland, and there are some in Scotland and in the west of England. And there's a medieval text called the Scholar's Primer, which was used in the old bardic colleges in Ireland, and tells you all kinds of additional information about Oghams, and it links the letters with animals, rivers, castles, all kinds of things. But the one that most people go for is the trees, because each of the letters has a tree linked with it. And in our Ovate course, we've got a series of exercises, they're sort of Tai Chi-like, but they're linked to the Ogham letters and to each of the trees. And they're actually designed to be performed with one of the trees, if you can find one. You can do them on their own if not. But there's something really great about getting out there in the countryside and standing next to like an oak tree and standing under its shade and doing these exercises that tie in with the tree itself. And they help you to kind of relate spirit to the trees.
These cards are beautiful, though. It looks like you've got actual photographs of the leaves of the trees here.
Yeah. So I wanted
along with the Ogham over the top.
Yeah, I wanted people to be able to use them to identify the species.
So you can wander with these out into the fields. Or...
So yeah, you go out with a pack, and if you're not sure on your tree identification, you take them along and from the leaves on the deck. And also the fact that there's a tradition both with runes and with Ogham letters of colouring them red, because red is the colour of life, because it's blood. And so I thought, well, green leaves and the letters in red against them, that's going to look really neat.
So these are nice cards, the size of a decent tarot deck. Love the illustration. They've got leaf illustration on the back.
Yeah, I put the leaves on the back together so that you can just kind of stare into the point in the middle, and everything radiates out from there. It does. So you can use it as kind of like a leaf mandala.
It does. And you've kind of got, as well as the leaves and the Ogham on the front, you've kind of got some words around the outside that tell you about the tree and what it means.
You've got brief meaning of the card along the bottom. You've got the name in Irish and in English translation at the top.
So we're looking at the beach at the moment.
Yeah.
Refrain of sickness.
Yeah.
That's
Down
cool.
the sides, you've got phrases which are from what are called the phrase Oghams, which are in this book, The Scholar's Primer, this medieval book. The phrases on this one are movement of a sick person or refrain of sickness. And they're just, really short phrases, but that's good because they're kind of enigmatic, but they also kind of speak to your subconscious.
Yeah.
And they help you to sort of key into what the thing's about.
Yeah, well, they're lovely, aren't they? What do
Beautiful
you think?
cards. Absolutely
Aren't they
beautiful.
And I mean, one of the reasons that I wanted to put them together and make them as pretty as possible was because even within Druidry, not huge numbers of people use Ogham as a system of divination. A lot of Druids actually use runes.
Yes.
Or, various tarot decks that are around. Or my old mate Will Worthington working with
his
Philip
animals
Cargon has put together the
Beautiful
Druid Animal
senses
Oracle
there,
and the Druid Plant Oracle.
Yeah.
And these cards are actually the same size as those. So, if you've got a special box that you keep your Will Worthington cards in,
they'll all go in.
these will fit along with it. But yeah, I wanted to try and encourage people to get more into the Ogham system because it is an interesting system. It does have its own kind of inherent beauty.
Did I hear you saying that the idea for these or the development of these came out of the Ovate course?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about the Ogham system because there's a lot of interesting stuff in the Scholar's Primer, and I've extracted the things from it that seem to make the most sense to me and tried to put them together into a system of divination like the one that's described in the early Irish texts. But in order to do that, you need to kind of make your own Ogham wands. And a lot of people would genuinely, really, these days, rather work with a deck of cards. So I gave them the option. So there are 2 booklets about the Ogham in our Ovate course. And one of them tells you how to go about making a set in the traditional way out of wood. And the second one is to work with this card deck.
Brilliant.
So I did a smaller version of the card deck that we give away with the course. But they're, kind of little. They're sort of like, calling card size. But I wanted to do these bigger ones so that you could see the leaves more clearly and just so that they were more, regular card size to handle.
To shuffle and to deal with and so on. Absolutely. Yeah. Have you designed spreads to use with them like you would with the tarot card spread?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
It's
I've
clever.
got all that, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant stuff.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. To spend a bit more time studying those cards.
Yeah, me too.
We've got some more music before we continue with the interview, though.
We do. And thinking of trees, let's have a listen to Willow by the powerful Celtic band Pear Celt.
The poor soul sits dying by a sycamore tree. Sing willow, 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 with his hand in his bosom and his head upon his knee. Oh, willow, 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 oh, willow, 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 willow shall be my garland. He sighed in his singing and made a great moan. Sing willow, 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 I am dead to all pleasure, my true love she's gone. Oh, willow, 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 oh, willow, 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 willow shall be my garland. Come on, you forsaken, and mourn you with me. Sing willow, 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 whose Take this for my farewell, unlaid statue. Sing a willow, willow, willow. Write this on my tomb, that is in love I was true. Oh, willow, 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 willow. Oh, willow, 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 willow. In love I was true.
That was Willow by Pearcelt from their album Dowry of a Troll Woman. What a performance.
The rest of their album is fantastic too. It is. All high energy stuff. We'll put a link in the show notes so you can hear some more of their music. But it all has that fantastic Celtic sound played in their unique speedfolk way. That's what they call it, speedfolk.
Wow. Well, I hope we get to hear more of them in the future.
We will. Keep your ears peeled. In the meantime, let's get back to the interview.
Yes, let's get on and listen to the last part of the interview with Philip Shallcrass.
Well, we noticed that last year you released a new Ovate course. You've been working on a new Ovate course, is that right?
Yeah, that's
What? Can you tell us a bit more about
the last
that?
3 years.
That's the last 3 years, good grief.
So do you have them, there's only the Bardic course available at the moment?
No, the Ovate course went online last year.
Okay, and when are you expecting the Druid course to?
The last 7 years I've worked mostly on two things, which is putting these courses together and building a roundhouse.
Oh, yes. But
And
you've got no excuse now, the roundhouse is complete.
well, having finished the roundhouse about three years ago, the last 3 years have been spent really, really intensely writing, researching, editing the Ovate course. Having finished that, I thought, yeah, I kind of need a little bit of a break now. So the Druid course at the moment is due to go online somewhere around September 2015.
Okay, so ballpark really is September 2015.
Yeah. I mean, I've already started writing
How long
some
should
bits
each
and
course
pieces for
take,
it.
give or take?
Well, we send them out over a year.
Mm-hmm.
They're
there any pressure
downloadable as PDF files. From
Is there
our
any pressure
website,
to actually
so
do
you can
that
get
in a
anywhere
year?
you
Or
want. No, none at all. No.
Okay.
Because I know from knowing Philip and Stephanie Cargon for years, and knowing a lot of other OBOD members, because I'm an OBOD member myself, and I know that people sometimes take 7, 8, 9 years to do one of their courses, and I figured that ours were going to be the same. Ours, I gather, just in terms of number of words, ours are longer than OBODs, so I'm anticipating that people may be doing them for all eternity. I don't know. But, I mean, if you work at the Bardic course hard enough, I mean, we've had quite a few people who've gone through in a single year. The Ovate course, I think, is going to be more than the challenge because it's more than twice as long as the Bardic course, and it's really pretty intense. I mean, we lob people in at the deep end. Because the first booklet is 52 pages about the birth of the universe.
Right.
Okay, that sounds deep.
And, cosmology, singularities, weaving those into Celtic mythology. It's weird stuff.
Fascinating.
Fascinating, yes.
Because one of the Greek and Roman writers don't tell us a huge amount about Druids. One of the things that they say is that the Ovates were natural philosophers. And of course, we don't have that natural philosophy written down for us. So we then have to think, well, what did they mean by that? So one of the things that I did was look at their next door neighbours with whom they had a lot of contact, and that's the Greeks. And the ancient Greeks developed the concept of natural philosophy. I then discovered that the same concept of natural philosophy and also a healing system that went along with it was developed not only in ancient Greece, but also in India and also in China simultaneously.
Wow.
And the Celts were part of a trading network that linked all of this lot together. And to me, it is impossible that the educated caste of the Celtic peoples in Europe, the Druids, would not have been a part of this same explosion in learning.
I totally agree.
Absolutely, they certainly would have absorbed
trading
it,
knowledge as much as they would have clay pots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've drawn to a certain extent on what the Greeks' understanding of natural philosophy was, and on Greek and later Roman, because they nicked most of their stuff from the Greeks anyway, healing techniques. And oddly enough, the three cauldrons thing and the 12 doorways, you can find echoes of those in early Greek and Roman texts on healing.
The Vedic texts as well are very. There's quite a lot in the Vedic texts that's similar to a lot of the stuff that you find in the Irish manuscripts, etc.
Yeah. The way that I one of the ways that I set about interpreting the 12 doorways of the soul text was to look at Ayurvedic healing. And I found they're basically points on the body, and exactly the same points on the body occur in Ayurvedic healing, only the Ayurvedic system's been around a lot longer, it's a lot more complicated, there are a lot more of these points, but the main ones are there in this idea of the 12 doorways of the soul. And as well as healing, something that I haven't gone into because I'm a pacifist is their use in martial arts, because they're also attack points.
Right.
They're sort of tender points within the body, basically. But they're called the 12 doorways of the soul, and that instantly indicated to me that they are gateways through which spirit can pass in and pass out. And again, wherever you look on this stream of knowledge running from China through India, through the Middle East, across to Greece, and I think through into Druidic Europe as well, you have this idea of spirit as breath. And in the Irish tradition, it's called Anma, spirit. And the 12 doorways of the soul, it's Doros Anma, doorways of the soul. So it's this breath spirit, and it passes in and out through these 12 doorways. And that's in a nutshell, the basis of this system of healing that I've worked out.
Cool.
Which does really seem to work, I have to say.
Come
I was going to say that was my next question.
Yeah.
How does it work in practice?
Well,
I'm not asking you to give all your secrets away, but
with my NHS friend, I'm hoping that we can sort of roll this out and sort of teach it to people hands-on. Again, it's a question of sort of finding time and finding the right venues in which to do it. But there are several different ways that you can work with it. The easiest one is working with it as a kind of yoga. So, you get yourself into a comfortable posture. Being an old hippie, I still quite like the whole cross-legged thing. And there's archaeological evidence that the ancient Celts kind of like the whole cross-legged thing too, because you get representations of gods who are sitting cross-legged in what look incredibly like yogic poses. And then you work starting from the head and working down to the soles of the feet. And the crown is the first one that you open up. And then there's the back of the neck, there's the temples, there's the throat, and you work down your body and you open each of these in turn. And one of the first things that I noticed when I first had this done to me, in that first workshop weekend that we did, is that it clears your breathing phenomenally. You find yourself suddenly taking in huge quantities more oxygen, which stimulates all of the sort of bodily systems, of course. Because, oxygen is one of the great sort of health givers that we need running around our body.
yes, in Western civilization we don't breathe properly either.
No,
which,
no. In normal daily life, I'm aware of the fact that I tend to breathe quite shallowly. So maybe the effect was even more marked with me, I don't know. but certainly it opens up the airways incredibly, and things start to sort of tingle and glow. And by the time you've worked your way down to the feet, one of the things that I noticed when you get to the soles of the feet, which is where the last one of the doorways is that you seem to get then a kind of feedback loop, and everything kind of zooms back up to the one that you first opened in your head, and it's like there's this kind of line of energy that's running through the whole of your body, and the whole thing just kind of tingles, and it's just extraordinary. It feels amazing.
Sounds incredible.
It does, actually.
Yeah. Have you tried this, Joe?
Once, yes.
And how did you find it?
Yeah, it's a little difficult to judge on a single experience, but it did kind of work. Yeah, it felt quite good. There was a lot of lightness of body, I suppose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
Sounds
does.
incredible.
Sort of feeling
Yeah,
of contentment.
definitely.
That might just be the sort of rest and meditation aspect, but yeah, whatever it did, it kind of worked. Yeah,
Did you feel
It's
good?
Yeah.
Supreme.
That sounds actually fabulous. I can't wait to see this and read about it.
Yeah, it's good. I was very excited when I discovered it, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's excellent.
There's always this kind of slight doubt. You kind of write all this stuff down, and I wrote it down first, and I kind of tried out bits and pieces on myself, but yeah. And it wasn't until we did this workshop weekend, and we had about about 15 people there, I think, and a fair few of them actually were healthcare professionals. Purely coincidentally, because they were actually there for something different. We just threw this in as a bonus. We had no idea that at the time that there were so many healthcare professionals there. And then, like, actually having it done to me fully for the first time, and having all these other people sort of jumping around, like, really excited after it had been done to them, and just really bouncing with energy, and just wow.
I could definitely do with some of that.
Yeah, I think we need some of this.
I think we could be onto something good here.
Yes.
So, go on, babe.
I was just going to say, so you spoke about these courses that you're doing. Are they written solely by you, or is there input from other people, or?
No, I've written quite a lot of them. I mean, I had some written material knocking around that I hadn't used, that I incorporated into the courses. Also, I wrote a book some time ago called A Guide to Druidry, and we used that as a basis, a sort of basic starting point. But no, quite a few other people have written stuff for it. There's a friend of mine in Seattle, Leon Reed, who's provided us with about a 100-page herbal, because he's been a druid and pagan for about 35 years and a herbalist for about 30, I believe. And he gave us the whole of the herbal that he uses in his practice in Seattle.
Wow.
So that's in the
That's
Ogham
incredibly
course.
generous.
Yeah, he's
Amazing
a great guy, really is. He also provided us with about 40 pages of star lore that he gleaned, because as you probably know, there's not a huge amount of star lore in any of the original Celtic sources.
No.
So he's gathered together what there is and has then tried to expand on it. As I was saying with the 12 Doorways, you look at other related sources and you see if they support the little fragments that are there, and if you can use them to expand on them. So he's been working on that for about 25 years as well, and he gave us that for the course. My friend Elaine, known as Elaine Wildways on Facebook, if you want to check her out, Elaine Gregory, she's written a whole cycle of seasonal festivals, which are in the Ovate course as well. We introduce the seasonal festivals in the Bardic course, and then we go into them in more depth and give complete rituals for them if you want to follow them. But we always encourage people to make their own if they feel confident enough to do it. So we've got all of those. She's also provided us with a whole series of rites of passage for women, which are also in the Ovate course.
Yeah.
That could be very, very, very attractive to a lot of women, I would have thought. Some
colleagues in OBOD helped me put together a series of exercises to go with the the Ogham alphabet and the trees that the Ogham letters relate to.
Oh, sure.
So we have kind of meditation and movement that goes with each of the trees.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, lots of other people have contributed.
Brilliant.
Sounds brilliant. So, how can we find out more about the video courses that you run, and obviously the private things that you obviously run other courses as well? How can we find out about the BDO if somebody wants to know about where to come, how to contact you?
You guys
what
organise
courses you're
events
running?
and things as well, don't you?
Yeah, so you
Yeah,
kind of organise
yeah,
other
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So where would they need to go and find that? Where would they go?
Well, the main website is www.druidry.co.uk, or there are 2 Facebook pages. So if you search on Facebook for the British Druid Order, we're on there too.
We'll make sure those links are in the show notes for you guys.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Elvis has now left the building.
Oh my God, he's hiding over there.
And our last question is, if you
This
could
is
choose...
probably the most important one, isn't it?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah,
If
we've
you
saved
could
it
choose...
for last. I know, I'll shut up, yes. Yes, I'll shut up now.
Right. If you could choose one person from history to sit and have an hour's chat with, who would you choose? And you're not allowed to say Robin Williamson, okay?
No, I've been there, done that. I played a duet with him on my 60th birthday. It was lovely.
Which is awesome, yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, you know, as a druid, I suppose it ought to be somebody like Iolo Morganwg, who was the guy who founded the Welsh Gorsedd Bards back in the 1790s. And for
Well, they claim he made a load of forgeries, didn't they?
Oh, he certainly
some
did.
Part
Yeah,
of it
yeah,
was,
yeah.
some part of it wasn't.
But they were so good, they fooled most people for getting on for 150 years.
Yeah.
It was a very good forgery.
And he was an exceptionally good poet too. And you know, the acknowledged greatest poet in the Welsh language is Dafydd ap Gwilym.
Yeah.
And there was a collection of Dafydd ap Gwilym poems that was put together during Iolo's lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And Iolo got in touch with the people who were putting this collection together and said, look, I've discovered a whole lot of lost Dafydd ap Gwilym poems. Would you like me to send them to you? And they said, oh, brilliant, wow, fantastic. So he sent them these, you know, lost Dafydd ap Gwilym poems, which of course he'd written himself. So they appeared as an appendix to this collection of Dafydd ap Gwilym's poems, and the ones that Iolo had written himself became more popular than any of the ones by Dafydd ap Gwilym. They were the most popular ones in the whole collection. So, you know, the guy was a genuinely inspired poet. But yeah, I don't know, might be him. Or
That's as a druid you should. Who would you like to?
I'd be interested to have a chat with the guy who was on the grassy knoll that November day in Dallas.
There's a few questions I'd like to ask him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's, yeah, I don't know. I suppose, yeah. What would be really interesting, actually, would be to be able to converse with a British druid of, let's say, 2,300 years ago.
It would.
That would be really interesting.
Wouldn't it, Josh?
Take a pen and paper with you.
Yeah.
He'd probably kill you with his hands.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you see? He realised you were writing it down.
Call me obsessive, but you know, putting these courses together, that would be really, really, really interesting.
I could tell you, but I might have to kill you.
As, yeah. I mean,
Yes, it
I
would be
don't know. I mean, you
fascinating.
can see, yeah. I mean, one of my inspirations for getting into all this was when I was a kid, even before I read, you know, anything vaguely related, even like Lord of the Rings, I didn't read till I was 18. Really. But when I was a kid, I used to stare into mirrors. Now, I don't know if this is normal. I've no idea at all. I've not asked many people, but I used to stare into mirrors, and I invariably found, while staring into a mirror, that my own face would disappear, and it would always be replaced by the same face, which was an old man with a long wispy white beard who had just white eyes and was quite clearly completely blind. And he would be there in the mirror, and I always found his presence really comforting and reassuring.
That'd be a
And
good one to have a chat with.
So maybe he is my 2,300 years ago druid.
It could
see.
well be. couldn't
I've
it?
never quite figured that one out. I should probably go back to a mirror and see if he's still there.
Well,
shouldn't I?
yeah, why not?
Trouble
Let's
is, if you
hope.
start staring into mirrors and other people wander by, they're going to form a pretty strange opinion.
Yeah, you probably need to do it somewhere quiet.
Yes, I think so. Joe, ever so quickly before we go, who would you like to chat with?
Yeah, good question. I'm slightly torn. Would it be too much of a cliche? Say Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde?
Yeah, why not?
Brilliant one. Yeah.
Just see if he's, as witty in person as he was in his writings, as much as anything else.
Yes.
I think he'd be loads of fun to have a chat with.
Superb.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, Philip, Greywolf, and Joe, thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
What a super interview.
It was, wasn't it? Philip also told us he's got a new album of his music coming out soon and left us with a wonderful song to play you.
He did. And he told us that he was sitting at home one misty morning, gazing from his window at a grey, cloudy day, and it struck him that soon his sons would be making their own ways in the world and me rattling around at home alone most of the time. And the words to the song came to him almost all in a rush. So he wrote this song.
A lovely tribute and a lovely song to some lovely young men. Have a listen to Philip Shallcrass with his song, My Sons Forevermore.
sorrowful and misty morn, my sons apart from me walk through the world at distances too far for me to see. When to a small I help them then upon my open palm, I pray the gods will guard all three and keep them safe from harm. First words, first steps, first days at school, times passed us by and flew. Thin limbs, small hands, and shining eyes looked to me as they grew. Their mother died and I was left to raise them on my own. I've done my best, is that enough? I I would that I could shield them still, my sons forevermore.
That was Philip Shallcrass with his track My Sons Forevermore from his forthcoming album The Lord of the Wildwood. There'll be more details in the show notes.
Super stuff. Now then, before we finish the show, have we got any listener feedback?
We have, indeed. We heard from David from California, who's only just found the show, and he's left us this super message.
Hello, this is David from California. I just discovered the Celtic Myth Pod show, and I absolutely love it. I just listened to a couple episodes today, to and from work, and it was really, really fun stuff. So definitely will be listening more in the future. I just wanted to let you guys know that, and also to suggest an addition to your site. I noticed you have a list of Celtic film and television series that feature Celtic mythology and stuff, and I just thought you could do well to add the recent animated movie The Secret of Kells, which is all about the Book of Kells and includes an Irish fairy, and it's a really fantastic movie. So, with that suggestion, thanks for this show, and I will be happily listening in the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much, David. That was lovely to hear. We hope that you continue to enjoy the shows.
Yes, and thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you for your great suggestion as well. We'll make sure that The Secret of Kells gets added to the list of shows to watch on our website. What a fantastic animation that was. Do you remember it?
Yes, I do quite well. It had a completely surreal or otherworldly quality to it, didn't it? Brilliant idea. Thank you, David.
I think it's time we bowed out now with our last piece of music.
Sadly, I think you're right. The show is nearly at an end, and it's beautiful here in England, now that spring is well and truly with us, and Beltane is just around the corner. So, shall we have a listen to a super song for Beltane?
That is a really good idea. So, what have you got?
Have a listen to our friend Dave the Bard with his sunshine-filled track, Under a Beltane Sun.
Shackled feet, they long to be free from this modern Rome. The ancient moors and the granite shores, they are calling me home. Sometimes this city is too much to bear. I hear a calling in my soul. The mother's waterways will take me where life has begun, under a Beltane sun. And the
Sometimes this city is too much to bear. I hear a calling in my soul. The mother's waterways will take me where life has begun. Under a Beltane sun. Salmon swims and the diamond stream sings with the blackbird's song. Voice in the breeze, well it whispers, please won't you sing along. Sometimes this city is too much to bear. I hear a calling in my soul. The mother's waterways will take me where life has begun. Under a Beltane sun. Under a Beltane sun. Under a Beltane sun. Under a Beltane sun. Under a Beltane sun.
That was the incredible Dave the Bard with Under a Beltane Sun from his latest album, Antlered Crown and Standing Stone.
And let's not forget our friends in the Southern Hemisphere. They are moving through autumn time to Samhain, a time of deep reflection and remembering of the ancestors.
Yes, our ancestors are vitally important to us all. They help us understand where we come from.
And they help us know where we're going to.
Well said. But with those words of wisdom, I think we've come to the end of the show.
And talking of family and ancestors, we have our granddaughter here today, so we're going to have her come and help us say goodbye to you. And so before we go, we'd like to wish you many blessings. And Amelia would like to say...
Goodbye to you all.
Yes, goodbye to you all.
Bonsoir.
Do you remember one of his earliest and best-loved New Age albums called Edge of Dreams?
Yeah, we've had sex to that. You must have been really good that night because I don't remember it.
You don't seriously want me to leave that in the body of the show? Outtakes maybe, but I'm not leaving that right in the middle of the show. We can't put that in the show.
Okay, so...
Let's just say it is a good album.
No, it wasn't old enough. I'm not old enough to remember it. Good luck, Phil. Can't wait to hear your album. And why...
For more reason than one.
Yeah, can we have some more floaty stuff, please?
Okay, would you like to redo that line, please? I lost it there. You've been listening to the Celtic Myth Pod Show, available from CelticMythPodShow.com. We hope you've enjoyed the show and will stay tuned for the next episode. You can send us an email or some voice feedback to Gary and Ruth at CelticMythPodShow.com. The show notes for this episode can also be found on the website. We'd like to say a special thank you to Kulan's Hounds, who provided us with the theme music for our show. You can find them at www.sfhounds.com. We'd also like to say a big thank you to Anne Bruce, Master Harper and Keltoria, with a K, Celtic New Age Music, who have both given the show unrestricted access to their music. And thanks again go to Diane Arkinstone and Kim Robertson, whose music has been used as some of the transitions you've heard in this show. You'll find links to all of these wonderful artists in the show notes at shownotes.celticmythpodshow.com.